Okay, here we go. Hi and hello, Dune Imperium fans. I hope all is well with you wherever you are in the world today, and welcome. Today, I have a real treat. This is Brandon Manning, the most recent 2024 United States Dune Imperium champion. I have a series of questions I'm going to ask him from myself, but also list of questions from people on Reddit and Facebook fan page as well. So to begin, I wanted to ask you, before we really get into the juicy bits of the championship game, I wanted to ask you about your basic history with gaming in general, because I saw on your Facebook page, you're holding a Magic the Gathering card. So clearly you are a gamer, you compete, you play. Let's talk about where you got started with this hobby.
Yeah, well, my parents had me playing board games at a young age, in which it was an era where I thought I hated board games. Because, Sorry and Monopoly being the extent of it, I wanted nothing to do with it. Mid-20s, a friend introduced me to, I think Battlestar Galactica was the first real board game I played. Pretty heavy. But anyway, it snowballed from there, and now I work at a game store, and I'm just selling games all the time, and don't shut up about games.
When you say game store, do you mean like a video game store or an actual board game store?
I work at a board game store.
Oh, yes.
Common room game.
And do you get enough time to play games when there's not a lot of customers?
Used to. The store's busy enough. That's harder now.
Oh, because I always envy the people who work at board game stores, because I think like when it's slow, you could probably have a game tucked in the corner somewhere and just keep it going throughout the course of the day when it's not busy. That's always got to be something fun that you could do.
Yeah, it's happened a few times.
And another thing too is that I've always talked about with people who are not super into board games is just the fact that board games have come such a long way from Monopoly that when you tell people who haven't played board games a lot that like there are a lot of really good games these days. It's not all about Chutes and Ladders, Monopoly, and Stratego. Like this is advanced stuff now, and it's really thematic and intricate, and it's really satisfying to play the games. Although I can see why a non-board gamer would be intimidated by the rule books, so that can be tricky. So the other thing I wanted to ask you too is, how did you get involved with Dune Imperium specifically?
Yeah, actually, it was because of the pandemic. My roommate and I had been playing a lot of Terraforming Mars. That was sort of a random game we latched onto for a bit. And I think he just saw on a Reddit thread, here's this new game coming out that looked cool. I wasn't really invested in the Dune IP. I still know kind of minimal amount about it. Or I think I played the board game, but yeah, we were locked in an apartment for a year, and we just played 2-player games over and over and over again.
Yeah. So you were with Dune from the very beginning, before the first expansion, The Rise of Ix, came out, and I'm like you. I also started from the very beginning, and I remember playing for a long time with Ix and moving into Immortality and Uprising and so on and so forth. What are your thoughts of the new expansion that's set to come out, Bloodlines? Have you looked too much into that? Or have you seen anything about it?
I peeked at the characters at Gen Con.
There's like 20 characters now.
I did not realize that.
That's so awesome.
Too much information about it yet.
Oh, yeah. I looked at the box and it said, I think it said it's coming with 20 new characters, which is massive. And also on the Facebook fan page, there's a guy I've been talking to. He's going to start releasing his own fan-made character cards. And I'm throwing my money at him, of course, as soon as it's available. I'm buying those up just to make the game more interesting as much as possible. Now, let's see here. Now I wanted to ask you about the event in general. How did you discover the tournament that you were involved in from Dire Wolf?
I think this is the third year doing it. I think first.
Oh, seriously?
I heard about it after it was done. I was like, oh, that was a thing. I wish I knew, which I didn't look very hard. That was on me. And then I played last year as well and didn't do as well. I got eliminated in round 2 last year.
Bummer, man.
Do it all year to come back.
Oh, especially round 2. It's really early. How many? So were you a part of the tournament that had Mr. Beast as a sponsor with the $200,000 prize?
No. I think just the top player from last year, or maybe the top several players, got a private invite to that.
Oh, really? Oh, whoa. I did not know that. I thought this was the same I didn't know that. I thought that was a Dire Wolf. So this is a different tournament that they held for that specific prize. Okay, so this is your third year doing it, and another thing I kind of wanted to ask you too is, with this specific game, considering that you're competing with it, how frequently do you get to play it, and how often do you practice? I'm sure you play the digital version, no doubt about that.
Yeah, so I've been playing that a lot, and that's a great way. I've got a lot of long distance friends, so this is the way. Hey, here's this game I've been talking about for 2 years. I can finally play with them. In person, I still, my roommate that I mentioned at the time, we don't live together anymore. We still hang out for board games, so we still get together once in a while and play some 2-player Dune, and then I play some games with my partner. So I've mostly played 2 and 3-player games.
Yeah.
I actually have not a whole lot of practice with 4-player games in my whole history of playing this.
Yeah, and Dune gets way more difficult with 4 players as opposed to 3. I find it more challenging just because of the board space availability and everything. Here's another one. The physical Uprising. Do you play Uprising more than you play the base game, or do you which one do you prefer compared to the 2, and which one do you play more of?
To date, my favorite experience is the base game with it.
Yeah.
I also like Immortality, and I like Uprising, but nothing quite. And I was real excited that finally came out. Ix came out on the
yeah.
Playing.
I've been losing a lot. It's like way harder than I guess it's just because of the, just the competition that's out there. Everybody's got a little bit more experience than me. I only just bought the X expansion on digital like a couple days ago. So I've only managed to get in about 3 games on it, and I've lost every one of them, but they were close. So I'm getting the hang of it.
Yeah. I think I've done Ix and Immortality with Uprising just a couple times. I feel like I want to dabble in that some more and see what I think of it.
In this tournament, you played Uprising, correct?
Yes, it was just Uprising by itself.
And so since you played the base game more than Uprising, did you feel intimidated getting into this, playing a game that you don't have as much experience with?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like I had a pretty good grasp of a lot of strategies, but sometimes there were still cards that would come up in the Imperium row that I would go, I don't think I've seen that.
Yeah.
I realized that maybe I should have practiced a little more.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, for sure. But, whatever you did, it was the right thing. So it worked out in the end. All right. But let's talk about the actual game itself. I have not seen it yet. I did read from Dire Wolf that they were going to be releasing the footage of that final game where you won the championship. I just was wondering, if the best of your ability, let's talk about the beginning, middle, and end of that game. Let's just look at round 1. Do you remember what the conflict card was? Do you remember what the Imperium row looked like? What was your thoughts getting into the first round?
I don't remember a lot of the early game details. I do remember I went for unlocking my worms pretty fast.
Okay.
I'm a strategy, but not something I do every game.
Okay, so you were right out of the gates thinking about getting those worms. Okay, interesting. And this is just a fun, silly question. Was this a must-win game?
Oh, good.
The final game. This is the must-win. Now, whoever wins this one is the champion, right? You're playing against 3 other people. All of them are varying degrees of quality in their play. I'm sure you were thinking, have you ever played any of these guys before you seen them that day in that tournament?
No, I did not.
Oh, so you have no idea what their styles are like.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And so
I think that was true. I think we were all mostly blind as to what we were getting into.
Oh, really? Okay. So one thing that I always think about, and this is just be on the lookout, because I'm going to be a part of one of these tournaments coming down the road. So I'll be coming for you. But when that day comes, one thing I always think about is I don't know who these guys are. I don't know how good they are. And I always get freaked out about that because I get built up in my head like, I've got to win. I'm going to win. Now, with any good board game like Dune or any good board game, there's a component of luck to it for sure. I mean, I'm really good at Dune compared to a lot of people I know. And I'm sure you're the champion. You're really good at Dune. When you get this good, it definitely helps to have the skill, but I've played enough games to know luck can go your way and luck can go against you. And no matter how good you are, you just can't beat a bad luck game. You know what I mean? The cards just don't go your way. So let's talk about a little bit about that. How did you combat that during that game?
Real quick, I had a follow-up thought to the...
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
The other opponents. I'd say like in the first 2 rounds of the tournament, I was sort of looking out for clues of people that were a little more experienced with the game, or people I'm like, well, this person's behind on points, but I feel like they're setting up for something big.
Yeah.
And I sort of focus on, I need to beat this specific player in combat because the other 2 might be dirtling around a little more. But then by round 3 and 4, the games were full of people that knew what they were doing. So it was just paying attention to whoever was closest to you in points.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Okay. I can see what you mean. I actually had this very similar strategy when I played Dune online. I very frequently find myself neck and neck with one other guy who's about as good as I am. And then there's like 2 other stragglers that are struggling. Whether they're good or not, I don't know, but they're struggling. So I always find myself sort of picking one and going, that's the guy. That's the guy you got to look out for. And you can see what they're doing, and you can see what they're doing is like intelligent moves. So you can see that there's a quality to what they're doing that you can sort of notice if you're experienced with the game. And so now when we got into, so what we talked about round 1, you're obviously your memory is a little foggy about the details of the game, which I don't blame you. It was about a week ago or so. And so let's talk about when you started to turn the tables a little bit, it starts going your way. Did you ever have a sense that, oh my God, I'm about to win, this is going to happen? Like, how far ahead were you of everyone, or were you close? It was a real close game right down to the wire. How did it wrap itself up?
For the final match, I remember taking an early lead. I might have won the first 1 or 2 combats. I don't remember exactly which combats they were or what the reward was, but I remembered I was like at 3 points.
I beg your pardon. Just give me 1 second. I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I forgot to ask, what character were you?
Oh, I was Duke Leto.
Okay. That makes a difference on how all this unfolds. So you're Duke Leto. You've had several combats to your side, and please continue. I apologize.
Yeah, you're fine. The surprise they sort of put on us this year was they included all the Uprising characters, but then also the 8 original characters from the base game, which nobody was expecting.
Okay.
They dealt everybody 4. And it was the first time I think most players had used any of the base game characters on the Uprising.
Okay, interesting.
So in the first 3 rounds of the tournament, I had an opponent that was playing Duke Leto every game. And every game I was like, that seems really good. Specifically using gather support for just 1 Solari.
Mm-hmm.
Value to get 2 troops and a water.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got Leto as one of my 4 I could choose in the 4th round, I'm like, heck yeah.
That sounds huge.
My other options were.
Yeah. It's funny. Personally, Duke Leto, I have sort of like his character for me. I'm very like in the middle with him. He's good. I've had a lot of lucky games with him, a lot of fun games with him. The 2 characters I hate more than any of them is Ariana Thorvald and Earl Memnon Thorvald. Those 2 are so annoying. Even when I play them on digital, I force myself to play as Ariana just for the challenge. But I can, if I win with her, I'm always like, yes, that was awesome. But it's so difficult. She's so tricky to work with.
So with Ariana, I think when I first started playing the game, she was my favorite character. I thought she seemed the coolest and the weirdest. And then my friend Anthony tracks all of our games on Board Game Geek stat tracker. And then we looked at it after like half a year. It's like, man, you suck as Ariana. And I'm like, oh, I do, yeah. And then we looked online and realized that a lot of people do. And it seemed like she has sort of a statistically worse win rate. But she's still one of my favorite characters, and I pick her a lot.
It is fun, and it's nice to have that draw card ability that you can fall back on, but at the cost of 1 spice. That always stings me.
Her ring giving a water.
That's good for sure. Absolutely. So let me ask you this. A lot of people have different styles of gameplay with Dune Imperium. And, I think there's some people who really like the combat element of it. There's people who find tactical wins, like say with intrigue cards or going on the faction trackers and stuff like that. What would you say the style what style do you implement? Like, do you have a preference for a style? I know that you have to kind of move around a little bit with styles depending on what the cards are, but which one do you like the best, and which one do you find to be the most successful?
Yeah, as you already noted, just being able to flex between whatever seems most available is the most important thing. But when I can, the more deck building spice must flow strategy is usually what I don't know, feel safest with.
Really? You buy those cards?
The spice must flow?
Yeah, you get those. Okay, interesting. That's a very interesting strategy. I do that sometimes, but I don't tend to base my game on that. So that's fascinating.
You usually have to build your deck to be able to consistently get to 9. So it's got the secondary benefit of just having the better cards from the Imperium row. So usually your actions are a little more efficient at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And filling your deck with those cards, see, that's the trouble though, is that there is a cost to the Spice Must Flow strategy. You fill your deck with some kind of dud cards. How do you navigate that? Do you find that deck building is the key component to the game, where you're filtering out the bad cards, replacing it with better cards? Are you pretty good at doing that? Getting rid of those bad cards?
Not always, and that's sort of there's a lot of factors on that, but it's not like a normal deck builder. I've played a lot of other deck builders, and I know you get limited returns in Dune. And that's why I wouldn't say it's necessarily the best strategy to Spice Must Flow. It's just what I feel most comfortable with.
Okay, well, that I find that very interesting, just because your style right away, just as what you're describing, I have used that strategy a few times, but it is definitely my least favorite, probably just because of the cost benefits analysis of drawing those Spice Must Flow cards later on are going to come back to haunt you. And then what are you going to do? Getting the consistent 9 influence is important. Absolutely. Got to get that. Personally, I think my favorite strategy, the way I look at the game is, it's really not so much about the first 5 rounds. It's more about 6, 7, and 8. Those are the 3 rounds you've got to build for. So even if it's a slog getting out of the gates, for me, I just feel like it's just an engine. Right now I'm getting it going. And then later on in the 5th, 6th, and 7th round, or 6th, 7th, and 8th round, however it looks, then I need to make sure I've got my pieces set up where they need to be, so I can start to put my character, my agents where they need to go for the final few rounds. But the one setback to that is it can happen where somebody takes your space on the board and it all comes crumbling away. It just slips right through your fingers. You're like, oh, it was so close. Something got in my way.
Sort of following on that, you asked about if there was a point in the finals where I knew I had it.
Okay.
I don't remember. I think it ended in round 7. And round 6, I realized I was set up in a way where I had forwarded water. I had a monopoly on water in the game. And I was going to be the only person that could go to the get to Worms space. So I knew I was going to be able to do that. And because I was hoarding all the water from the board spaces, nobody had gone to that space in the whole game. So it had 5 bonus spice on it. So just going there was going to let me go to the Highliner right after.
Okay.
And all I was holding my breath for was that the one player with enough spice wasn't going to go to the Highliner. And then as soon as he didn't on his action, I knew I'd locked it in.
Why wouldn't he have done that? Do you know? What do you think he was thinking? I'm sorry. Say that again. I'm sorry. I talked over you.
Have the faction symbol on a card.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, God, that kills. Oh, man. Because it could have been the difference of a win and a lose, right? Oh, brutal. That's vicious. Okay, let me get over to Reddit, because I posted about this interview on there with the Dune Imperium page. And also, let's see here. There's a few people here who have some questions. And let me just look them up, if you'd be so kind to hang tight. Okay, here we go. We have a guy named the Gentleman DM. Which heuristics do you use the most when playing? Likewise, which common wisdom do you find you ignore a lot when playing?
I can still like, even though I feel like I know the game really well inside and out, I can still just throw games by just making normal mistakes of just overlooking, oh, I should have gone there. And like, that seems like the most simple thing of, attention to your options. But yeah, anybody can make a mistake real easy.
Yeah, and you don't tend to find out about it until it's like after the fact. Like the next guy starts doing their turn, and you're like, oh, dang it, I should have done that. Oh, it kills me.
And even throughout the tournament, I did that multiple times.
There's a little room. There's a little room for a couple mistakes here and there, and you can still pick up the slack later on. So somebody asks, I can't pronounce this screen name. It's Lithic B. Pardon. Lithic B asks about intrigue cards. Should they always be a priority?
Yes and no. I think it is really useful to not have 0 intrigue cards because you can get bullied in combats. If you have no intrigue cards, everybody is happy to say, oh yeah, they have exactly 10 swords. I just need 11. And if you're just holding some useless crummy card, people will think twice about how much they want to commit into combat with you.
That's absolutely true. It's like a bluff, they don't know what you've got, and it's always good to have 1 or 2 on hand just to keep them, better think twice about this, buddy. You know what I mean?
If you're holding 3 intrigue cards, even if none of them have anything to do with combat, people are going to be really hesitant to go all in against you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I always go into combat thinking, if I'm really pushing hard, I'm hoping in the early rounds to get them to use their intrigue cards early game so that they don't become a threat later game. I've thought about that a time or two. If you're ever going to get involved in combat in the early game, my thinking on it is those the victories in the first 1, 2, 3, and so on. Winning those are not always very good in the early game, but if you're going to push for it, you might as well try to get them to use those intrigue cards if you can tempt them to waste them away. So I always kind of go in there under that pretense that I'd like to try to get them to use those so they don't have them for later.
Following on that, I don't know if I've looked at all the first tier combat rewards, but I remember in round 3 of the tournament, I did specifically force a fast combat strategy because the reward for it lets you go up on any faction track.
Nice.
Using the Fremen and making sure I won that first one so I could get to the second tier on Fremen. Round 1, I was able to start jamming worms into the second combat.
Oh, right on.
As I got from that, just let it kind of snowball real fast. So sometimes those early combats are still a couple of specific combinations that things can really go well investing in those.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's a lot better in Uprising than it is in the base game for sure. They definitely have a better formula for that kind of synergy. So this one is let's look at this because Such asks this. He says, considering the significant influence of prescience, especially in the form of Paul Atreides' visions and the Guild Navigators' limited foresight, how do you reconcile the Bene Gesserit's Okay, hold on a second. This sounds like I should have looked at this a little. I thought he was asking about the game. I think he's talking about the movie, or the book itself. Let's ignore that for the time being. Pardon me. I got duped. Darn you, Such. Okay, let's get into the other thread. We've got a couple other questions here. Here we go. This is from Kaijo BGG, and he asks, what is your favorite opening?
Just like opening play or...
I guess however you want to look at that question. That's all he asks. So,
sure. On Uprising, I wouldn't say my favorite, but getting those worms fast has such a big payoff.
Yeah.
Because then even if you're not winning combats with worms, getting the second place rewards doubled will give you the resources that feel like it makes up for whatever you spent on getting them. So have the most fun rushing worms every time. But 2 of my matches, I made sure get a Fremen spot as quick as possible.
Oh yeah. Okay. And let's see here. We've got, what are 3 advanced tips you would give every player from Vravro Bince?
Get good. No,
Yeah, be good right away, immediately now. Win every game.
That's one I could probably ponder for a while on, but if I could pull one tip off the top of my head, I would say don't ignore the influence faction traps. They're the easiest points, and every time you place on one of those, it's a half a point. Just think of it that way. But you're also getting resources for it also. Sometimes when I teach people, I try and emphasize that, and they still kind of, overlook that for a little bit. And when you get to the end of a game and you're like, oh, I only have 7 points, and you can look over at that track and you didn't go to the second tier on all of them, that's probably where some easy missing points were.
One tip that I have used, a technique that I've picked up on for myself is, when I'm looking at my cards and I see, let's say you're looking at your signet ring card, it lets you go to green, yellow, and blue spaces. And then you have something like your reconnaissance, and it lets you only go to blue spaces. If you have agent phase 1 and you're putting your agent on the board, and you definitely want to take a blue space, use your reconnaissance so that you have the available spaces on the other card open to you. Because I've had it happen where I'm like signet ring, agent phase 1, and then all I'm left with in agent phase 2 is that reconnaissance that only lets you go to blue spaces, but I need to go to other spaces. So it's like, oh shucks, I should have flip-flopped the cards around so I had more options in that second agent phase. So that's a tip that I kind of use just to prioritize cards in a certain order in the phases that you're doing. Let's look at this. Here we go. Here's another. This is actually a good one. I kind of want to know what you think of this. Remarkable 91 asks, if Dune ever grows to the status of Catan or Carcassonne, I don't know that game.
Yeah.
Okay. And hosts national championships all over the world with a World Cup, what version of Dune do you reckon gets played?
I think by the time that happens, they'll probably have come out with even more expansions. And I imagine they'll mostly be playing whatever the newest thing is, would be my guess.
Yeah, I personally prefer the base game to Uprising, but I definitely think that the direction is Uprising and beyond, and sort of base game is going to be left in the dust, which is interesting because they have Dune Imperium digital is the base game. So it's almost like they kind of, I don't know exactly what their business strategy is with that. It's kind of nice that you can go back and forth, but it does kind of leave people like what we're discussing now, the fact that you're not as experienced with Uprising as opposed to the base game because of Dune Digital. So when you're going to do championships and stuff like that, you got to make sure you get your practice in. And so let's see here. We've got only a couple more questions. Would love to see his leader power tiers. Okay, so also basic strategy, like when he prioritizes different types of victory points in his general play style regarding Swordmaster and High Council. Yeah, those are two. Let's talk about that a little bit. Which do you prefer between the two, Swordmaster and High Council?
I almost always go for Swordmaster first.
Okay.
But not always. I think in the tournament, I believe I got my Swordmaster every game. And I think in Uprising, I tend to go for the Swordmaster more often than not. Mm-hmm. Whereas, I don't know, it's probably like a 40-60 split on not getting Swordmaster in the base game with expansions.
Okay. And how do you find yourself going to High Council, or do you just sort of forget about that?
Usually when I'm going for Spice Must Flow strategy. The High Council.
Got it.
Not required for it, but it helps a lot.
It's a big help.
I would say the initial flop of Imperium row affects, if Kwisatz Haderach or some other 8-cost cards are up, I'll be more tempted to grab the High Council.
Oh, here's a good one I want to know. This is my question. a lot of people love the Kwisatz Haderach card. And there's a big question as to like, what's the best card of the game? And my favorite card is Chome Directorship, just because of the fact there's just nothing more satisfying than getting those factions on the board, listening to that drop every single time you get a victory point in the digital version of the game. It's just so satisfying. You're just like, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. You're like, yes. But then you're left with a dead card for the rest of the game. But you get the 3 Solari, which is pretty nice. But which do you prefer? And is there a favorite card of yours in the game?
So I agree with you. I think Chome Directorship is the most powerful card. Buying it can be the swingiest thing in the entirety of the game, including intrigue and everything. It's pretty rare I won't buy Chome Directorship, even over a Spice Must Blow. Kwisatz Haderach is a close second. I think I will pick that first in the first 4 rounds of the game, but if we get to round 5, I'll probably just take a Spice Must Blow over it instead.
Okay, right on. Yeah, and that's
on Uprising. I actually think the most powerful card is a 3-cost card. I wrote it down because I forgot. The Guild Spy, which is the closest thing to Chome Directorship. And I think I would buy that card for 6. And I've talked to other people who don't necessarily agree with my strong feelings on that, but it's the card that gives you an influence on each place where you have a spy whenever you buy a Spice Must Blow.
Oh, nice.
Chome Directorship almost every turn that you buy a Spice Must Blow.
I really love, aside from the most popular cards that everybody talks about, one of my favorite cards, and I'm so happy it's in Rise of Ix, is the Web of Power card. That is so sad. I love that card. It's so powerful, especially
infiltrate cards.
It's so good. I love Web of Power. And so let's see here. I see right behind you, you have the trophy they gave you and it looks like you have a nice wall for that framed picture that you won as well. That's super
rearranged and stuff too, but
no, I'm seriously, that is an awesome first prize right there.
That poster was a surprise. I don't know if they posted it anywhere, but I had no idea that was going to be part of the prize.
Oh, right on. Yeah, that's excellent. That's an original, right?
I'm not sure.
Oh man. Well, in any case, it's a historical artifact now. So there's definitely going to be some antique roadshow down the road, like 100 years from now. They're going to be like, this was the championship poster. It's worth the...
I was joking how 50 years from now, I'm going to die and then some kid's going to buy this trophy at a couple $2 in the paperweight section.
I was like, you know what? I should actually just buy my own trophy exactly like the one that you have and just start telling everybody I'm the champion and nobody's going to argue with me about it because who's going to look it up? I would not do that.
That poster that I won, I think their intent was for me to just walk out with the one there. But I guess something had happened and it had gotten damaged over the weekend at Gen Con.
Oh, vicious. Well, how would you have gotten it home?
Maybe that wasn't their plan. That was just...
Did you have to fly to the tournament or was it in your state?
No, I live about an hour away. So
oh, right on.
Easy drive for me.
Oh, okay. Cool. Very cool. Let's see here. Do you have a favorite character in the game? You had said Ariana earlier, but do you have a new favorite?
Even though I know she is statistically not great, but I just think she's one of the more interesting. I really like Armand from Rise of Ix.
Okay.
Getting the trash card, that always helps with my Spice Must Blow plays. And then I'm also really fond of... I wrote a few things down because I still don't know a lot of card names. Princess Irulan, who also lets you trash stuff with her.
Oh yeah. Princess Irulan. I love her in the book and in the movie. Of course, it's just really cool how they always start with her diary entries.
Wait, there's a book.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I think I heard of a book. I don't know. Let's see here. We have B-Dub. He's asking about your favorite leaders, which we just went into, some favorite intrigue cards. What Imperium cards does he think are undervalued or overvalued? And we kind of talked a little bit about Chome Directorship and Kwisatz, but what about undervalued cards?
Yeah. So this is a card I love because people hate it so much. And I know that Paul Dennen, the creator of the game, whom I missed the opportunity to meet. He was at Gen Con, and I
Too bad.
didn't see him myself. Anyway, I know he loves Sardaukar infantry, and everybody hates it.
Yeah.
I also don't buy it. I also let it sit in the row, just like everybody does most of the time. But whenever I've got a deck where I think this is the deck where I want to buy this card, I get so excited.
With Sardaukar, remind me, that's the one where you go to Emperor Spaces, it gives you 2 troops on an agent phase, right?
Oh, yeah, and there's a chance I'm misremembering.
Oh, wait a minute. Or is Sardaukar Infantry the one that gives you a troop if you go to blue spaces?
The one I'm trying to refer to is 1 cost. It doesn't have any ancient symbols and gives you 1 persuasion and 2 swords.
Oh, okay. That's a very basic card.
Yeah.
That's a very basic card. Okay, interesting. That's your favorite card.
Because I don't think sword build decks are always great, but I think they're always fun to play. So if I decide this is the game where I'm just buying all the swords, I love grabbing it.
Worm Riders, man. So, all right. I think we have pretty much wrapped up all the questions from the online audience. And is there anything else that you would like to share with the Dune fandom at large, the Dune Imperium fandom at large? And last, I guess I should just ask, how would somebody get involved in this tournament down the road if they would like to?
Yeah. First off, on closing notes, but also going back, you started to mention luck earlier, and then we.
Oh yeah,
pardon. There's so much luck involved. I felt very lucky. Even a couple of the matches, I felt like I was holding a lead the whole time, and I felt as in control as I could have. And I think, the whole game still could have gone south if somebody got the right intrigue or blocked me at a terrible time. In the final match, there were 2 rounds of combat where I was doing the math. I thought all this person has to do is reveal 1 dagger. And I got very lucky that those times they did not reveal a dagger.
So the combat goes down to the line.
I wouldn't have gotten the points that round for sure.
Oh, man. Yeah. I have definitely had a few games like that where it just has to be, like you said, if that guy had enough spice, but he didn't have the card in his hand, he doesn't get to go to Hayliner. So it just comes down to that. And of course, you're going to take it as soon as you can. All right. Well, I guess the last sort of thing. How would you recommend people get involved in this tournament if they'd like to, or if they'd like to get involved in board gaming in general? As you say you work at a board game store, so you should definitely know your way around how to get into these competitions.
Yeah, for Gen Con specifically, getting your badge, and then you can sign up for events in advance. I think they open them up months in advance, so you can save a spot for it. I don't think they might sell out for all the qualifier spots. I'm not sure exactly.
How did you get qualified, if you don't mind me asking? You had to go through a series of rounds before you could get into the finals, right?
It's just 1 game that you have to win for the qualifier. So you focus out for the 1 game, and then if you win that game, then you come back on Saturday.
Okay.
You play 2 games that day, and then if you win both of those, the finals were on Sunday.
Oh, whoa, cool.
And up for 1 slot, it was just a $2 ticket. So some people would sign up for multiple slots, and then whenever they win one, there would just be empty slots that other people could sort of pick up into later.
That sounds like a dream day for me, because I just don't have time for board games as much as I'd like. I could play them all day long, seriously, because when I'm playing board games, the clock, it just spins and spins and the day is over. And I'm like, I can't believe that we spent the whole day playing board games. And it's already time to go to bed or time to go home or whatever I'm doing. So board games are like my favorite thing ever. Do you have a favorite board game aside from Dune Imperium? Do you have other board games that you love?
Dune Imperium is my favorite board game. I have a long list of games I love. I've played a lot of the Battlestar Galactica board game. Sort of been remade and reskinned as Unfathomable by Fantasy Flight Games. I'm also really fond of Chaos in the Old World, but that game's been out of print for a long time now.
Okay. Right. Well, I think with that, I'm just going to say thank you for doing this interview with me. And, I'm looking forward to seeing how you do again. I'm imagining that you're going to probably attend the next tournament as well as the reigning champion. So congratulations to your victory. That is super cool. You are Dune history now. You're in the books. And so, yeah, thanks for doing this interview. And I just hope that you have lots of luck in the future playing this game.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Right on. Well, for everybody who's watching, I'd just like to say like and subscribe and share with all your friends, anybody you know who would be interested in board games or Dune Imperium in general. So with that being said, thank you very much for watching. And later on, man, catch you on the flip flop. We'll play a game soon, I hope.
Cool.
All right. Later, dude.
Bye-bye.